you are gonna see some cool ass shit.
Yeah, you don't want two Flavor Flays.
Heart transplants, brain surgeries. I've seen it all.
Dude, that's fucking dope.
Walk up and just get it, whatever it is.
Yeah, brother.
I'm trying not to laugh, bro, but Josh is fucking killing me.
Guess what Navy SEALs do, motherfucker? They communicate and they're on the same fucking page.
Whoa.
We're live.
Welcome everybody to the Happy Hoodlums podcast. It's your boy, the Happy Hoodlum himself, Mr. Kemper Woodruff, and we have Zach looking like he's been in the sun. He ain't flexing for once. Come on, give him some. Woo! All right, Zach Wilson in the house. Yeah. Well, I guess we can start off with signs. You know, not just because you're red, but because I was thinking. When I was
This is what I look like. I just made my camera, I adjusted my camera settings, so I'm a little bit more red because of that.
That's all good. Your
Yeah.
room's popping, so it looks good.
Boom.
You're a good looking dude, so don't worry about it. I was saying this because, you know, I've had a lot of shit going on in my life that's made me like kind of rekindle hope, I guess you can say.
Mhm.
Like, I have a knowingness in terms of certain things that I'm working on because they'll just be a byproduct of me putting the work in, you know? But in terms of relationships, and like personal relationships, it's different, right? It's different than you showing up to the gym, exercising every day, and knowing that you're going to get an outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah.
You know? Or in school, you're going through schooling, you know, on the other side, you get a degree, you know, you have a way into the industry, things like that. But in personal life, you know, I have a lot of shit that's been like lingering on my consciousness. And as I'm going through it, I've noticed that signs have started to like pop up, you know,
Okay.
and I'm getting more and more of them. And they can be little things like I went and I was like watering the garden and stuff, and I came back to turn the hose off when I was done, and there was a fucking cricket, or not a cricket, but a grasshopper right there. And I was like, bro, what are the odds? Not only do I never see grasshoppers, it was like posted on the side of the house, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just having a weird day, and I was like, well, that's most auspicious, you know? And
Like what? Well, to you, what does that signify? Like, what is that a sign of?
bro, grasshoppers are prosperity, and like kind of also it's something my dad would always like say to me, because there's an old school like TV show or something with like David Carradine,
Mhm.
and you know when people say grasshopper, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
It was like a karate thing,
Mhm.
you know? And so to me, it's like you're going through the gauntlet, you know? Like it's okay to be beginning again.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And just like stay the course, because there's good things that are going to come of it, you know? And it's just lucky. But that's just one of many things. That's just the most pertinent one in my mind. But have you ever had moments where you've had to, like, have you leaned more on signs? Because I know you're a very logical dude.
No, like when you talk about seeing grasshoppers, like I used to catch them as a kid. So like
Oh, okay.
I never really like, to me they weren't a rarity. And that might be because of where I grew up, right? It's like you grew up in the city, so there's more concrete. I grew up where there was a lot more grass and shit.
Mhm.
So like it was probably a little bit different. But also when I was a little kid before I moved to Oregon, Oklahoma has a fuck ton of grasshoppers. And so that's where I did a lot of like, dude, me and a friend in elementary school, we were less than 6, bro. We caught a fucking tarantula and put it in like
What?
this. Yeah, he had this like bug case. He was super into bugs. And we were on the playground at school and we caught a fucking tarantula in this fucking plastic case. Yeah,
tarantulas come from Oklahoma?
I mean, there's some there. I don't think that they're like,
What?
yeah,
Fuck.
I don't think they're fucking massively populated there, but we caught one.
That kid was like a Steve Irwin in training, bro. Because I'll tell
Yeah,
you right now, fucking with no
I
damn
remember his
tarantula.
name too. He's my best friend growing up. His name was Jonathan.
All right, shout out to Jonathan.
Yeah. But yeah, so like no, I never really leaned on the whole like sign thing. Like I've tried to look at things and be like, could this mean something different or could this mean that I'm doing something right or something like that? But it never really was something that I looked at cuz it was just like if I'm doing it right, it's going to show results. Right? And if it's not, then I'm going to adjust and find a better way to do it so that it does show results.
Have you
That's
ever
always
been in
been
a
me.
Have you ever been in a position where you feel like there's an act of divine intervention that you like witnessed, like where like something that truly defied science? I'll give you an example. Like in my life, I feel like there's just been so many instances um, of me experiencing divine intervention that in like life changing moments
Okay.
that I always look at signs because they're just like undeniably there to me. I
Mm.
guess like it's tailored to me. So going back to like when I was, I guess like 4.5, and I got in that car accident with my dad and my brother, and we hit this tree doing like 70 miles an hour, and I'm not wearing a seatbelt. And with my face, I literally blew out the windshield of the car. You know what I mean? And didn't go through the windshield. Like to me, I'm like, bro, that. And I like visually like remember that shit. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
straight up like divine intervention. You know what I mean? Everybody that showed up to the scene looked at this truck that was absolutely mangled, and we hit it just perfectly dead center. Didn't get cut in half by this like like telephone poles, how they have that line that comes down
Yeah.
diagonal, the
The ground
anchor one.
wire.
Yeah, we went between the ground wire and the pole while my dad was asleep with his foot on the fucking gas.
Yeah, fuck.
You know what I mean? And then just planted right into this tree so hard that literally the whole cab like fused. Like they couldn't even open the doors on that bitch. I'm 4 years old, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and so like just shit like that where I'm like, there's no way. Or another one, even before I was 4 years old, like this shit started happening early to me, bro. Um, I was running around these like flower beds with my brother out at this church. This was like way out, kind of past Troutdale.
Mm.
um, Back in like the 90s. There was like nothing developed out there. There weren't hospitals out there and shit, bro. There's no way I could have gone anywhere from this injury. I'm running around this like flower bed chasing my brother, and I must have been maybe like two, like 2.5 or something. And he hooked a fucking hard left, and I wasn't able to turn quick enough, so I kind of did that like toddler stumble, and I
Oh yeah.
fell face first and like planted my head on that rock, and I was like bleeding out. I literally impaled myself like on a fucking rock, and that day, right, my was the one day because our church was called Living Enrichment Center, and they would always bring like different speakers from different races and philosophies and stuff to come speak. This dude was a monk who was like a Reiki master, right? And uh, my dad was like crying because I'm literally like dying in his arms. And I remember I like passed out, like, because I just lost so much fucking blood from my head. And apparently my dad ran into the like cafeteria to find my mom, right? Sitting with this guy. And he was just like, give him here. And my dad handed me to him, and he held his hand over my head. His hand got like super bright almost, like, and then when he took his hand off my head was healed, like, and I can still feel the spot where my shit is cracked, like where my skull doesn't meet up properly. And that's like at like 2.5. So like I guess I can't look at things the same way
Yeah.
after experiencing that kind of shit. Not saying that there's a right or wrong, but I'm just curious if you've ever like been through something in your life where you're like, I can try and science this shit out. I don't know, bro.
I mean,
Like,
personally, no. I don't think I have. Um, I mean, I have like experiences of like getting my foot stuck next to this big ass spider web. And this is one of those way in Oklahoma. We were climbing on hay bales and just running on top of them. And I went to
mhm.
put my foot into this spot to like climb up, and it gets stuck. And there's this big spider. And these spiders, what they do as like a warning signal is vibrate their web. So this spider's going woo, 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 like that. And it's a big ass black and yellow spider. And the only, I mean, I ended up was screaming so loud that my dad came out and was able to pull my foot out of the hay. But, and then there's another situation like, um, my,
You gotta stop fucking with spiders in Oklahoma. I don't know if you do that. That's like a
um,
that's like a brochure of why not to go to Oklahoma.
that's like the tip of the iceberg, bro. There's these like yellow hornets, or not yellow, they're fucking red.
Red
And
hornets?
they just hang out at the top of a doorway, bro. They just hang out at doorways and they fucking scare the shit out of you. Um, and
That sounds
they sting
some,
and bite. So like it's fucked up.
that sounds
Um,
like a fighter pilot group,
yeah,
the
bro.
Red Hornets or some
Yeah,
shit. Like that's like a
fucking, and
gang,
they're massive. They're like this big, bro. They're
bro.
huge. But and so like another situation is just like we used to live on this peach orchard. Or not, no, this was a different house. We used to live on this dude's farm in like a brick house, and there was a fence that ran around the house down the driveway that was a barbed wire fence. I'm not sure if it was barbed wired, but it was for sure electric. And on the other side was goats. And I was like, we were playing hide and seek, and my thought was, oh, I'll climb this fence, and I'll, like, there's a small hill, and I'll hide down on the hill with the goats. And I went to grab the fence because it was low voltage. It holds on to you. It just makes your muscles clench. It doesn't push you off. And so that was happening while I was being shocked. I guess this might be, you could consider it this, because what I remember is I remember the way I was facing was away from the house. But I remember seeing the people run towards me. So whether this was like somehow I was looking behind me or I was an out of body experience type shit while I was getting fucking shocked as like a 4-year-old looking behind me, seeing, I think it was my grandpa at the time, great grandpa, something like that. Grandpa, great grandpa was running towards me and he ripped me off the fence. Um, and so like those types of moments are like the only few moments that I remember that could be remotely in that like category. And I mean like there was another a lot of these are like really young. Um,
Yeah.
but another one was we were at Grandpa Lester's, which would be my great grandpa, and he had this big ass barn, and it was fenced in, and in the fence was this big ass bull, and I was like 4 years old, something like that, and we, me, my brother who's 6 years older than me, so he was probably like 10 or 11. My cousin who was probably like 8 or 9, and then my other cousin who was about 4 as well. He and I are about the same age. We were like, fuck it, let's go in and run, see if we can make it around the barn.
Mm-hmm.
And so we go in and we start running around the barn as this bull is chasing us. And now that I look back at it, I'm like, if that bull wanted us, it would have had us. Because I was a 4-year-old and all I remember is like looking back and this bull is just right on my ass. And it's so close to me and I felt like I couldn't run fast enough that I just started
Yeah.
breaking down crying. And my brother turned around, grabbed me, and started running with me in his arms. Um, and so I'm like, I don't think that is like a divine intervention type situation. I think that bull was just like, I'm gonna chase these little things and just see, just chase them. And but if I were to think about any other situation, I can't really think of it as I don't recognize it as a divine intervention situation
All right.
or anything like that. But
That's fair enough. Yeah, I think that's probably one of those things where the bull was like, "I'm gonna chase these little things," and your brother had some adrenaline. He's
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
yeah. But I peed on one of those electric fences when I was little, so I know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, that shit. It'll fucking get
Yeah,
you.
no fun, dude.
No
I
bueno.
cried so hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
and
remember
I
the
remember
pain.
like right after it, bro. I was at like our friend's house, and they had like horses, and it was something like we were chilling with the horses, and I was like, I was peeing out, and they had like two strips of them. It was like this, and so
It's
I was
almost like
peeing like,
flat rope almost.
yeah, I was peeing like between them. And
Yeah.
as my stream just kind of went down, I was like, and so I got myself like, ah. And then I remember I fell over. And I think it was like one of the horses like was like trotting by or something and just looked at me like punk and just
It
like
went.
fucking got me. You know what I mean with his leg? Because I remember it was like a double whammy where I just wound up laying down flat, but I got hit with something like
Yeah,
like right afterwards.
bro, that
So
reminds me of this video I seen. It was a dog was fucking around like barking at a donkey on the other side of an electric fence. The dog zaps itself because it got too close, and the donkey just starts hee hawing at the dog. It was like the donkey was just laughing at the dog. It was funny as fuck. But yeah, that was
yeah, I've had some interesting experiences, dude. You
yeah.
know, actually, at that same house, it was our friends Darian and Holly, and their mom Dana, and our mom Benita, who's been on once before, um, and my brother and I. And so we were riding horses like down to the river, because they live over by Mount Hood, or they did. And so as they went down to the river, they were trying to get like the horses to cross at this certain point.
Hmm.
And the horses, like one of them would not cross. It was the one that Dana was on. And I remember the horse wound up like bucking her off or something when she like forced it through, because apparently it could feel all the like there was a ton of yellow jackets that had made a nest in the mud. And so
Mm.
she like got bucked off the horse or something. I think she broke her leg, and the horse wound up stepping into the like wasp pit.
Oh
And
fuck.
so it got stung like thousands of times, and they were sitting there getting stung, and her leg was like broken, and she got stung so much. And my mom had to like take a whole bunch of the like mud and patched like her leg with it, and like packed her leg with all this mud, for like the wasp stings and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But her leg was like broken, and it wasn't a compound fracture or anything. It was just snapped, and we had to like pick her up and put her on the horse, and they like rode back, and it was like a crazy ass thing. And so like the girls and me and my brother just had to like go back with with the horses. And I just remember being like, that was one of those moments where like it was a fucked up moment, but it was hella cool to see like my mom's like warrior spirit almost like come out. It was like some
Yeah.
epic movie type shit. You know what I mean? Her riding away on the horse and be like, "Get back to the house." You know what I mean? And we're like, you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's like some trippy shit. But you know, especially because like my dad was always like healing people, particularly me because I was always getting fucked up. But did I ever tell you about like that accident where my dad wound up like helping this biker
Yeah.
whose bike had washed out? Yeah, so it's like just seeing a lot of weird shit early, I guess.
Yeah. I
I
did
looking
like.
back on sorry,
Go
go on.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, looking back on it, like my life is all that I know, so like what's normal to me, I realize it's really abnormal.
Yeah. I did a lot of like one. You do have a lot of like. I think most people's lives, unless you grew up in like a ticky tacky little place, in like a city as big as Portland, it's pretty easy to end up living like a pretty like abstract life because you never know kind of like what the fuck you're gonna end up doing or
Mm-hmm.
seeing and shit, especially nowadays. But um, in Cascade Locks, it was all kind of the same shit. Most kids, uh, running into the woods, doing random shit, going swimming during the summer. Like there were so many different swimming holes in Cascade Locks that kids would go to, like the platform, Blackberry Beach, the actual beach, Eagle Creek, Punch Bowl Falls, all of those places, the water tower. So it was just like all we did growing up was just outdoor shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never really got like a whole lot of crazy interactions in terms of I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but that was kind of just what my life was growing up. Was just a bunch of swimming and shit and a bunch of like hiking and climbing up shit I probably shouldn't have been climbing up. Like there was this it was probably like 30 or 40 feet. Only time I've ever like free climbed anything and it was absolutely terrifying. Um
Yeah.
and we were like it was across the street from the city hall, but in like probably like 20 feet into the woods. There's
Mm-hmm.
this cliff. It's pretty much straight up, maybe like a slight angle. But me and one of my friends, we were climbing up and just like normal fucking rock climbing. This is shit I was used to because we would rock climb up sides of cliffs that were like next to water. So if we fell, it was all cool. We would rock climb up and then jump off into the water. Um, and so I was just doing it like normal. Grab this tree branch that was coming out of the fucking side of the wall, and I go to lift myself up, and I pull the whole fucking thing out of the wall, and I'm like, oh fuck, and I almost fell, and I was like a third, probably like 2/3 of the way up this fucking wall, and I'm like, that was probably my first like conscious face with death. So I was because I was old enough to really remember it and grasp the idea that I was just like I was really close to dying at that moment.
Yeah.
And so every step that I took after that, I checked. I would pull on it before I put weight on it, and I would step on it once or twice with my foot before I put real weight on it, and then I would just go. But like that's the type of crazy shit that I experienced was just like
So
dangerous
how,
shit.
how do you feel when you watch those like crazy ass like cliff, like free climbing videos that people put up?
They make me nervous, but I don't like it doesn't give me a whole lot of anxiety.
There was one called like the Alpinist. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, it's a documentary. He's like the Nepal's guy
Alpine.
who climbs like 18 or no, that's peak summit, something like that.
No, this
Alpinist.
dude is like he was free climbing like
Oh
everything. I think he did like
yes.
Mount Everest or some shit.
Yeah, he was the white dude with crazy hair and shit, right?
Yeah,
And he ended up uh
I think he and
like
his girlfriend died or something, or he died and his
he and
girlfriend
a
survived.
climbing partner got caught in an avalanche.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then his girlfriend went looking for him. That was a
that
good fucking movie or documentary.
yo, that documentary made my ass clench.
I
You know what I
loved it.
mean?
I
It
fucking
was
loved it.
great,
Yeah.
but it was one of those things where I was like, even through the screen, I was like, yo, that is next level shit
It
right
makes
there.
my palms a little sweaty, but like it doesn't give me anxiety. I'm like I guess sweaty palms is a form of anxiety. It's like a light form of it, but like I don't know. I kind of am used to it because I grew up on fucking cliffs, bro. Like, I was like jumping off shit super high, so I mean, like, I'm not afraid of
There's
heights.
there's levels to it, bro.
Yeah,
Like
I'm
when I look
aware
at
of the
it,
danger, but
I don't know. That did something to me watching that.
yeah, you should watch the. You should. I think it's called Summit. This is with the dude. He's like from Nepal. He's a Sherpa, and he got tired of all these like people from the West going in and getting all the credit for like summiting Mount Everest, for example, right? And they're always posting pictures about it, but never like posting about the Sherpas that lead them to the summit, like guide
Mhm.
them, literally keep them alive. And so he got tired of it, and he kind of like did this whole uh like the tallest peaks in the world in record time. I think it was like 60 days or some shit. Maybe 90. I don't remember. But he broke the record on climbing the tallest, the eight tallest peaks in the world in a certain amount of time. And the documentary is all about that. Him and his crew of Sherpas, just they all go up these mountains and just fucking dominate. They save
That
lives on the way and shit like that. It's crazy.
damn. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to watch it. You know, that's something that takes a lot of like foresight and funding to do.
Yeah.
Because like to be able to like if you're really breaking that record, that means you gotta fly all around this
Oh
fucking earth.
yeah.
You know
Bro,
what I
this
mean?
dude was also like you'll probably enjoy this part, but he was part of like Nepalese, how I don't know how you say it. But Nepal special forces. Um
Wow.
I think they're called like I don't want to say that they're called the Frogmen, but I think they trained with or they are called the Frogmen, one of the two.
Yeah. They're not
Um
called frogs. But yeah.
but they are he talks about them, I think,
Yeah.
in the movie. That's why I'm not sure. But he fucking his story, his like active combat stories is fucking insane, dude.
But I'm just curious because I didn't even know that Nepal had like a military like that.
Yeah,
Now
dude.
you got me curious.
I'm pretty sure it's Nepal. Pretty sure he's from Nepal. Just look up Peak. I think is what it's called. Peak on Netflix. Peaks. Peak. Something like that. This dude's crazy. He's fucking awesome.
The Gurkha?
Ah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
That's what the special forces are called. The Gurkhas. Where I don't know where I got frog from. I know that's like Netherlands or something like that, right? I don't know where that
No,
is.
dude.
That's Swedish. I'm not sure. I know that's a special forces name of some
Frogman has to
country.
do with underwater people, and so like it is European.
Yeah, I just don't
Um,
know
like
which country.
they have Frogman Corps, which is apparently in Denmark.
Ah, yeah,
Um,
okay.
but no, Frogmen have to do with like underwater demolition. And so like Navy SEALs would often be referred to as like frogmen in America.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But kind of intrigued by this because are the Gurkhas special forces?
And they like have a crazy selection process for it too.
Yeah, so it looks like they are kind of a part of the British military, are trained
Yeah.
with like the British Army, which the SAS is where we got a ton of our selection courses, like training material from, or standards, um, in particular for like Delta Force training and stuff,
Yeah.
and like getting up there is they would get sent to like the SAS gets sent to like the craziest parts of the world, you know. So they'll have to train in like the jungle.
Yeah.
Then they'll have to train in like Arctic conditions. Like they do everything. So the British SAS is like badass. And then another special forces unit, or just like army in particular, that's somewhat similar, that's really not heard of, are like the Australian special forces.
Yeah.
Hmm. They adopted some of that like super hardcore terrain, uh, like navigation and shit like that. Just absolutely strenuous times to meet and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that always drew me to wanting to do like special forces work, is like that was like my ultimate dream, you know? Um just because it's like, dude, there's so many bad people on this planet, you know? And I look at it and I'm like, eliminating horrible people and getting to like test yourself and, be in those circumstances where it's like, can we do this? And like having to like figure out a way to do it, like us versus them type shit. I thought that shit was so cool.
Yeah.
Always. Um, and like the older I get though, and like the more I look at shit that governments do, I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of like clandestine operations where people get killed that should be killed. You know what I mean? But I also look at it as like some of the motives behind things and people in power. It's like, man, you really, I respect those people in the super high branches and just in the armies and military in general, for rolling the dice of their life,
Yeah.
putting their fucking life on the line, and having someone that might be a complete fucking jackass doing some immoral shit that shouldn't be done, or things that could be done better but are just handled poorly, and carelessly in regards to life. I really salute people for that shit. But yeah, that terrain navigation just seems so fun. It's got to
It's
suck at times, but it's also got to
oh
be
yeah.
one of those things where like you get through it and it's like the most gratifying shit ever, because you're like, what? We did that? Like there's a dude in Delta Force. I don't know his name, but he went through with Dale Comstock, and I think he might have mentioned this when he was on the podcast. So if you haven't seen the Dale Comstock episode, watch that shit. Treat
It's the
yourself,
most popular episode so far.
dude. He broke both his legs and made it through Delta Force training.
That's wild.
Yeah, he went through on broken legs. That's just fucking bananas to me. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
So that kind of stuff is way cool. I just have so much admiration for those stories and for those men and women. Really cool. It's something though that like you gotta be you gotta be built for that shit.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
also don't think that most people that do that have like a limitation in their brain at any point. You know, like you can't have any kind of doubt. Um, you have to have the utmost faith, to operate at like the highest levels. And I think a lot of that is cultivated through like fucked up shit. Like
I think
looking
go ahead.
back on my life and listening to like as many of those um, interviews as I have, I feel like it makes sense why I would be like one of those candidates to want to do that in terms of like a psyche like profile or whatever.
Mhm.
Just from like experiencing a lot of like gnarly shit when I was younger, and then having like a broken home and just shit like that, you know, and kind of like I don't want to say like a god complex, but like a drive to really like test myself, but having a ton of like faith, like truly believing in like a higher power, bro.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what it comes down to when life really presses you like to the fullest, where it's like we're gonna see truly how far you can go until you're running purely on your essence. Like we've boiled down all of the bullshit, all the tough talk, all of that. Who are you now? Like when you strip you of all of that. And I think it comes down to like your faith or not.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to like your mental strength and what you're able to like withstand. Cuz like here's like a good example. Um you know how like a lot of people, I mean, this may not be a good example, but this is a really mellow example. Um Yesterday me and a couple friends went to Dave's Hot Chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Um and there's there's levels of spice, and at the top there's the Reaper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I'm like, look, I will try like a bite of this fucking spicy shit. And I told him, I straight up told him, I was like, I'm a Goggins this shit. I'm not, you guys aren't gonna see me fucking react no fucking crazy way because I got this shit. Um, and so the kid next to me, Aziz, he took a bite. He ordered two of them for himself, two just like chicken strips of the Reaper for himself. You have to sign a waiver for these things. Um, and so he ordered them, and he took his first bite, and he was, now in my eyes, was being a little dramatic. After I've tried it, it seemed like he was being dramatic for the first bite that he was having. So he was like going through it. And so I was like, this shit does not have me. I'm not gonna fucking react no way. Like my body's gonna do its own reaction, but my fucking brain isn't gonna trip out. I'm gonna be chilling. And so I took this thing, and exactly that happened. My fucking eyes start watering. My mouth is fucking on fire. But I'm like, anyone who panics to this, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you panic to that. And I'm not good with spice at all. But in my head, I was just like, I don't know how anyone panics to this. And so my point is,
You used it as a training exercise or some
yeah,
shit?
yeah. And so my point is if you're able to put your mind in a place of like, this won't have me, this isn't gonna
Mhm.
take me down, this isn't gonna make me react any type of way. I think that's what most of these people have, right? Because like
Mhm.
I've heard stories of like Navy SEAL people saying, like when people talk to them, like, oh, you must not like feel fear or some shit like that. They're like, no, we're afraid all the fucking time. But it's our ability to work through that because of our training, right? And it's like, no, I think it's going to be really hard for most people, unless you're just an absolute fucking animal, to not be afraid of a fucking possible bomb coming through your fucking window at one point if you're in a battlefield, right? Or some other dude popping out of a corner with a fucking gun, right? You're going to be afraid, but you've trained over and over and over for a situation like that, and you understand what your steps are to do it. So you're a little bit less fearful and you react. It's
I
like,
think fearlessness is parallel to carelessness. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's like, because you stop caring. Like, if you're not afraid, you get reckless, like you said. Like, carelessness and recklessness and fearlessness kind of go into the same hands. Like, bravery is kind of just facing the fear and being willing to live in it, not a lack of it. In my eyes, like, if you don't feel fear, you're not brave.
And I think there's mitigation for fear. You know, like if you formulate a plan, you know,
Yeah,
you're not really going to be super scared or thrown off if things deviate from the plan a little bit, you know,
yeah,
because you're just reacting at that point to the best of your ability and it's going to play out how it's going to play out,
yeah,
you know. But generally, if you have, like, there's people that they're saying, I would rather have a good plan now than a perfect plan later.
yeah.
You know,
That
because
that
that need for a perfect plan is actually, it paralyzes you.
yeah,
You know, and that's when you look at the like reaction of stress shock like phenomena. That's where you get caught in someone else's OODA loop, someone else's proactive decision making cycle,
yeah.
and you're now defensive and trying to react, and that's not a good way to win because speed, surprise, and violence of action is like, and shout out to Dale Comstock, overwhelming forward pressure, you know, is something that's needed to win against an
Yeah.
adversary. And
And
it
this is
also
just
makes sense.
another. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say I've I've done some training with John McPhee, and I spoke about it before. His like rifleman class,
Mm-hmm.
and how he was talking about doing everything mid stride of a walk. And I'm gonna look up posts from a dude named Gray who I met in that class who was like Royal Marines. Shout out to Gray. Because he had posted something about mid stride of a walk and like warrior stuff that I think you'll really like. But go on, my
Um,
brother.
in terms of, like, to take it back to the Dale Comstock episode, you talking about having a good plan now rather than a perfect plan later is kind, and I've used this philosophy in my life currently, was his plan to survive a helicopter crash.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if anyone wants to fucking watch that episode, I'm not telling the story. You can go watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But him having that plan to survive that crash helped me understand, like, oh, you just need like a general idea of what you want to do if this situation happens, and then you'll be so much more prepared than the average person who gets themselves into that situation as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just slight preparedness. Like, okay, I'm gonna fucking do this. I'm a fucking, like, okay, fucking just example. You're in a fucking restaurant, and he talks about a story, not a story, but an example like this as well. You're in a restaurant, and as you sit down, you're like, I'm gonna sit on the outside so that I can leave first, so I can get out first if someone comes in and starts waving a gun around. Then I'm gonna find this piece
Mm-hmm.
of cover, go to that, and then make my way to the door with all these, and have an order of things you're going to go to, moving closer and closer to the shooter. And so it's just having even a slight plan like that puts you at such a strong advantage over anybody. And it can be even in like just general everyday life. It doesn't have to be in like a high stress situation. It's just general things. Have a plan going forward. It doesn't have to be spot on every time, but just something.
So this is something from John McPhee, and then I'll read the other one.
Okay.
But it says, your stance should always be mid-stride of a walk. Why should it always be mid-stride of a walk? Because mobility increases survivability. We should be mobile as possible, especially if someone is shooting at us. And if we are, our feet are going to be in more of a walking stance than it is anything else. You have to always be in this walking position. When we say walking, we mean you have to be mid-stride of a walk. And so then going to this next one, this dude's name is Kasem Zugari. And he said, after a thorough study of many of the documents of transmission of combat techniques written prior to, during, and after the Edo period, we know unequivocally that the many differences between the classical martial arts and the modern martial arts. One of the first issues is the attitude of the body while walking. In effect, all of the teachings and manuscripts of the masters aim to realize any type of technique while in mid stride, and according to them, therein lies the ultimate secret. So it's interesting, like going with even like Miyamoto Musashi.
Mm-hmm.
He said, with all martial art postures, it is essential to maintain a combat posture in everyday life and an everyday posture in combat. You know? And so it's just interesting looking at how it kind of goes back to how you do anything is how you do everything. And so having one of those like methodical minds, and what I would ultimately say is like a predatory mind state in a sense, you know? Because you don't have to have a subject like a person to kind of like stalk a situation, you know? You don't have to have like a target in a room that's a human being necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a target that's like the door, you know?
Yeah.
Like a plan of escape is the target, you know? And I was thinking about this the other day kind of because one of the things that I notice so often is walking around, people will not pass each other directly on the sidewalk anymore if they can. You know, like they will walk around somebody and cross the street or do things like that. And I think this is kind of a good example of people having that mindset, but almost more from a prey side, rather than like a predatory, like knowing, oh, if this person comes up and does this, I'll do this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And having that level of confidence that you can just walk right by somebody rather than trying to skate the situation entirely in a way that postures yourself as like fearful.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because you almost feel like as a human, or at least I don't know if this happens to you, I feel kind of disrespected sometimes when people avoid the shit out of me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I don't feel
Or I'm
that,
like,
but what I just walk past people. Like I may give them a little bit of space so that they don't feel like I'm coming right at them, but I just walk right past them. I don't walk around. I don't try to avoid people. I stay on the fucking sidewalk. I'm like, this is just where I'm going to be. I'm walking in a straight line. You can avoid me or whatever the fuck you want to do, but I'm walking, right? And like I'm always watching them because usually when I'm outside, I have my sunglasses on, so I keep my face forward, but my eyes are on them, type shit. But I'm like, for me, it's just I just walk past people, and I don't really feel like I don't feel any type of anything when people try to avoid me, because like nowadays, like especially with a lot of like fear mongering and shit that goes on the internet, it makes sense why women would give a larger distance between a random dude on the street. Um, in terms of dudes, I think it's just like trying to avoid that confrontation that might end in a bad situation. And so I get like a lot of people just in general right now are really afraid of shit because of all the shit that's being spewed on the internet, because it's all you see pretty much, unless you have catered your algorithms on things to be not that.
Yeah, I
And
definitely
so
walk around and say like hi to people and like even in passing,
yeah,
like just acknowledging their presence
yeah,
in a way that's kind of like endearing. Like it's kind of old school, and you don't really hear people here say it,
hmm
but I love the word howdy. I think howdy is so like
my dad
uh,
uses that.
inviting almost and like endearing. It's just like disengaging to
Yeah,
somebody.
howdy,
It's a
how
very
you
nice
doing?
way to say howdy, you know?
Yeah,
And they're just like, oh, okay. So I kind of go out of my way to like talk to people lately,
yeah,
um, especially because of that. Because like people are kind of fearful, and I've noticed like the times that I try not to do it is if people are already like engaged in a conversation. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, we got some new neighbors in like where I live, and they were like working on a car, and I could tell they were kind of just like they hadn't seen me before, or maybe they had, but I hadn't seen them, so I'm pretty sure they hadn't seen me. And I like acknowledged their presence just by like looking at them, But I wasn't gonna go over there and be like, "Oh, hey, howdy, neighbor,"
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because I could tell they were kind of just doing their thing, having a moment. Um, but that shit's just kind of interesting to me, like the energy exchange that we get from people and how you can kind of like gauge somebody even from a distance, but
yeah,
having a plan can kind of make you can cloak your the energy that you're presenting. I think that's like a very powerful tool that people don't really look at
hmm
is how to truly like disguise what you're thinking, like if you do have a plan of like attack, so to speak, you know, but not putting off that vibe of like insidious energy.
yeah. Like having a good vibe, like not necessarily trying to come off like you're ready to fuck somebody up if you had to, but knowing that you could if you needed to. I
Well,
guess.
it's like
I don't know.
in a way, it sounds crazy, when you say it, but it's like thinking like, all right, if anything were to happen, you know, I would fucking stab you in the face or some kind of like crazy shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just as an outlandish thing, but not putting that energy out to where people feel like, oh, that motherfucker over there
Yeah.
is plotting.
It's
You
like
know
it's
what I mean?
okay to talk to me, but if you fuck around, I'm gonna fold my blind cane in half and whack you in the head with it. Like, you know.
And
So,
it's just an
but
interesting thing. I don't really think about that kind of shit like too often,
yeah,
but it's
same.
something that I've kind of started to like enjoy practicing.
Yeah.
You know, just as a level of mastering your own energy. You know, and remaining in a state where it's almost like you're powerful, but it's unnecessary because you don't have to execute it. You know, and I think when they've said many times over the years, like great people, like if you don't crave power, if you don't want power, and don't give a shit about being powerful, like you're able to kind of wield it, like you're ready to
Yeah.
use it and have good judgment with it.
Yeah.
But I almost see it like there's many ways that you can be powerful, and I think in our society, because things have like progressed further, people look at it in terms of like status and like money and things of that nature, more material things. But in the position that I've been in life wise, where had I've been stripped of a lot of shit, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um and in that it's made me more fascinated, I guess, and care more about just like what you can't take away from me, which is like who I am and the energy of my being, you know? And
Yeah.
the power of my mind and my body and my spirit to overcome any situation with minimal resources, you know? And through studying that and observing the way, observing myself, you know, because you can go through an interaction with somebody and be like, oh, like that put me in one of those positions where I was on my heels and I felt like it the whole time. And it might not have even been like anything more than a conversation of like, oh, how's it going? And then that person has like another question behind it, you know? It could be some like greeting type shit. But all of a sudden, like you're having an off day or whatever when you come into this conversation and you're just not ready for it. So the whole engagement makes you kind of like backpedal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Within yourself. You can't find the right words and the right timing. And it's kind of just like an awkward exchange. And you go, oh shit, well, what was that? That was that thing. You know, you were influenced by someone else's energy rather than influencing them in a way that was kind of like a positive co-creation. Instead, you just got overpowered. They just steamrolled your shit. But I kind of enjoy just like observing myself throughout that and seeing different people as like a testing ground. Like a really interesting test of that is, you know, over where I live, they got like security guards outside of like all kinds of stores and shit
Yeah.
like that, right? Because there's just been so many crackhead ass people stealing, right? And I was like on the phone the other day talking with Joseph, and as I was talking with him, I was just kind of I was having a passionate moment where I'm like expressing myself loudly because I was mad about some shit that I'm going through, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like around the corner, about to hook a right and then go down this little ramp to where the store is. And when I hook a right, there's like this security guard at the base, and it was like an interesting thing of I could tell he was assessing me as a threat,
Yeah.
you know, and like going through like understanding where I was coming from. If I was like a crackhead or if I posed a threat to him, because he had his back to me at first and he had kind of looked back like that and just kind of caught me back there. And it was interesting to see how people handle that situation. But that's a great example where you can really test yourself. It's like, do you appear to be a threat to somebody? Um, like, can you cloak your energy? Can you maintain good energy? Or are you going to get like steamrolled by this person's assessment
Yeah.
of your person? Yeah.
You know what? Like, I don't know if this is true, but this is the feeling I get when I'm out in public because I've been carrying my ID cane with me for like the last few months. It doesn't seem like people ever look at me like that. It's like people tend to
Mm.
walk out, like get out of my way, but not for a threatening reason. It's because they're like, oh, this guy can't fucking see anything reason. So it's like I feel like people see me majority of the time as the opposite. Rather than a threat, they see me as like, oh, this guy's not a threat at all. Essentially.
Well,
But I
I
also
think
like,
the world reflects to you how you are too. Like that was loud,
yeah.
but You know, like the world is kind of like reflecting to you what you're projecting yourself as. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is
Mhm.
like learning to master despite whatever you're going on or like you're navigating this internal, keeping it internal and not projecting it like onto people.
Yeah. No, I try not to put my shit on other people. Like I try and just I don't know. I try and be really even across the board regardless of what's going on
Hmm.
in my head anyways.
I just think also like most people walk around and never assess a threat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think this is just something that might happen when you've actually dealt with violence, like a lot in your life. And
I don't
I
know,
think
bro. I fucking do that all the time and I've never really been in that many fights as and since I was in middle school.
yeah,
And I look at people, I'm like, is this dude gonna do some weird shit as he's about to walk past me at the bus stop?
yeah,
Like I think about that, and I'm looking at him. I'm paying attention. I don't turn my back on people like that, but I'll look around like I'm not trying to pay attention to him, but I'm always like one ear on him, kind of shit. Like I'm always listening. Um, So I don't know. I'm always doing that type of shit. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not the majority of people who do it because now people are getting zombified by their phone and wearing headphones when they walk around and shit, so they're really unaware. But
yeah,
I think for a lot of people, definitely for the people like what you're saying that have been through some shit, they definitely have that level of awareness of like potential threats. But I think there's normal people who haven't experienced shit like that also are doing that too.
yeah. I also think like there's something to just being,
Yeah.
you know, and that's kind of like what I'm trying to navigate melding, all together
Hmm.
is like not needing shit to be just good, or seeing things as like bad necessarily, just seeing things as like less desirable, but they are what they are, you know, and
Yeah.
not needing to exclude it from the picture, for me to just be present in the moment, you know, and mastering presence while being able to influence your surroundings and like the world around you based on mastering the world within you is kind of what that's all about. But we're kind of just beating a dead horse on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people get it. But that's about all I got tonight. I can tell you that much. You got
Same.
anything else on your mind?
No, not really. I don't think nothing really worth talking about. I think it's just all
I
just general life shit, you know.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Until next week, we love you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Happy Hoodlums podcast, baby. Getting bigger
Hell yeah.
every week.
Fuck yeah. Peace.